Hello, this is Pam with Old Age Reboot. It seemed like the time to do a video, or what's been sort of going through the brain here was trying to come to grips with the sadness I've been feeling lately. I think I talked about that in my last chat with you all. And it's gone on, and it was like, well, I better really figure what this is about. And what I came to was that I think I was starting to feel like the sadness was my life. I could still see that I was over here living life, but somehow the sadness was holding a lid on it, or I felt like it was enmeshed in my life and in me in such a way that it was heavy. And I realized that sadness is here, and it's not going away. But it isn't my life. All I had to do was look around and see it's not my life. I'm making videos, I'm painting, I'm reading interesting material. Obviously, I'm agonizing over the political situation in this country and the status of this country in the world. I'm anything but bogged down by sadness. And sort of taking a look at the sadness and recognizing that the sadness is the grieving I'm doing for the loved ones I've lost. And it's really a sign, along with the tears that come, of how important these others were to me and are to me and how they've shaped who I am today. I'm old, I'm bold, my life is good. And I think I was starting to believe that the sadness was stronger than the happiness in my life. And the truth is, the happiness wins. Closest to family, a couple of really good friends. I'm an introvert, and I think the sadness was making me start to wonder if it was my aloneness, which I treasure so much, if that was what was making me sad. And I realized, no, that's not what's making me sad. I have lots of good reasons to be sad, and I will continue to be sad. But recognizing that it's only part of who I am, and it's only a small part of what I feel and what propels me through the days. And interestingly enough, as I was doing this deep dive into my sadness versus my happiness, I came upon an article from The Optimist in the Washington Post online by a woman named, Maggie Penman. Perfect name, isn't it, for a writer? At any rate, it was about the fact that, and these are facts based on extensive research done in a study called Health and Retirement Study. A couple of professors from the Yale University School of Public Health looked at that study and did some serious analysis of it. The subjects in the study, the Health and Retirement Study, it was more than a decade that they were followed. And what was found was that those who have a positive attitude about aging, who recognize it as a privilege, who are happy to be older because the alternative is not so hot, that they lived longer, they were healthier. And those that are happier or more engaged tend to have fuller, more meaningful lives. And it made me think of my husband, who in his last couple of years was really very limited in what he could do. And he knew, that he would not live much longer. But as I would sit there with him on the sofa, we talked about how we were both in the midst of the really difficult time and his failing health. We were both happy. We were happy because we were alive. We were happy because we were there with each other. We were happy for the medical care he was getting. And I never have seen anyone, well, I actually have a good friend now who I feel the same way about, who faces these multiple health issues with such grace and never once loses that passion for life. I make plenty of microaggressions about myself, the little old lady. But the truth is that those aggressions, be they big systemic ones or small ones, where someone feels that they don't want someone to know they have ortho shoes on because that's a negative. It's a negative because it's attached to aging. regardless of the fact that lots of people wear orthotics, but we won't get into that. How we feel about aging is a reflection of the messages that we give ourselves and that society gives us about aging. The truth is that almost half of people that are considered the elderly on tests of physical and cognitive functioning, they improve with age. Catch that. Anything that gives us a sense of purpose, whether it's a grandchild or writing a book or weaving potholders or walking your dog every day, watching the flowers bloom, finding the joy in the simple things of our lives, finding some sense of purpose. Yes, I have to take the dog for a walk. It gives me purpose. It gives me a reason. And we have to stop seeing our changes in our life, I should say, as a negative. They just are. And what's really important is how we look at them, how we embrace them, how we certainly might agonize over them, but it doesn't mean that we give in and let our lives become smaller. We find a way to get through that, to get out of this little egg we're in as we start to be lumped into that group of the aged, the elderly, the seniors. And they really stress in the article that it's the societal assumptions and language and stereotypes that tends to drag people down. And we do it ourselves, as I've already said. And they suggest that we follow 3 steps, A, B, C. And A is to be aware of the assumptions that are out there, the negative language, the negative examples, the emphasis on certain things as negative about aging that impact how we feel as older people, because we hear that we're supposed to be forgetful. Not the majority of the elderly do not have dementia. And so be aware. And this one's really key, and it took me a while to really appreciate what it was saying. It said the B in this. So A is aware of the negative language that is put upon us as older people. And this is important for you younger people too, because you're going to be old. And you are some of the ones that foster the negative language because you're afraid of being old. And we all need to get over that fear. Otherwise, we won't be able to really live a full life, which we're entitled to. If you remain relatively healthy enough to be alive at 70, 75, 80, 85, you damn well deserve to have a happy life. As full as you wish it could be, or as full as it can be given whatever limitations you live with. But we need to stop blaming being old for feeling bad about these things. We need to blame ageism for feeling bad about these things. Like since I took a fall a couple months ago, I will only walk the dog with a walker. And I'm doing that not because I can't walk the dog without a walker. I could. But I don't want to fall down and hit my head again. And city sidewalks are often uneven and they're tripping hazards. And so I walk with the walker. This also gives me a place to put a water bottle, a little collapsible dish for him, my tripod. It keeps me safer. And initially, I would feel like I had to tell people, no, I really don't need this. But the truth is, the only reason I had a negative impression or felt that my using a walker would be negative is because people think that means you're old, and if you're old, that's a bad thing. It means you can't walk. You're gonna, whatever. It's a vicious cycle. And as long as we keep blaming our discomfort on being old, we're part of the problem. We have to start blaming the ageism, which is so prevalent in our culture. That's why these things feel so negative. Sure, I am at risk of falling again, but I don't have to see that as a negative thing in terms of the fact that it's attached to being old. It's just a reality of my physical or mental, whatever is causing that to happen. Oh, it's hard to sift through. And the C is that when you are aware of the negative approach to aging or words about aging, is to challenge those things, whether they're coming out of your head and your mouth, as I find them coming out of mine, or whether other people are saying them, to help point out to them that, like I do about the walker, it's to keep me safe. I'm reducing risk. It's a smart choice. It's not a negative choice because I'm old and this is going to label me that way. To me, it's a smart choice. And I have to see that when I see other people using their walker, their cane, hearing aids, whatever will keep us safe and functional so that we can continue to live the life as a person of a certain age. I've really stumbled around with this and I apologize for that. ABC, if you're old, be bold. Blame ageism for some of the negative thoughts you might have about your life at the moment, and be bold to find the purpose that will celebrate your being of an older age, the privilege that you find yourself at this age. Unfortunately, in a society that sometimes doesn't value it, but we can value it, and younger people who we can help understand can value it. And there you go. So that's it for now. Thanks very much, and we'll see you again soon. Bye. Hello, this is Pam with Old Age Reboot. This is the third time I've recorded this video because I want to get it right. I decided I'm overthinking that, which I do sometimes when I'm painting too. I just keep going, where I should have stopped a long time ago. So I'm going to try to make it simple and say what I find the most important, because I don't make a video unless something has sort of cooked enough and I've either come to a stumbling block where I need to get it out and see what I really think, or I'm just ready to share it. So here goes. Right now I'm petting the dog's ears because he's saying, "Oh, Ma, we've done this twice already. What are you doing?" Anyway, I've been feeling really sad. I think I said that in the last video. It seems like endless sadness. So I decided to really think about it and sit with it like I say to do. And I realized that I was starting to let the sadness sort of color all the positives in my life, because it isn't like I was sad so I was sitting in my nightgown all day staring out the window. No, I'm still doing everything. I'm cooking meals and taking the dog for a walk and reading and writing and painting. But I was starting to let it weigh me down. And I decided to see the sadness for what it is. Grief over people that I've loved and that I've lost. And it's a way of remembering them. It's how I'm honoring their presence in my past, how I'm honoring the parts of me that reflect the love they showed me. But my life is happy, even when I'm sad. Just like when my husband was in his last years and we would sit together on the sofa where he spent most of his time. And despite his health conditions, we both confirmed to the other that we were happy. I always found that pretty amazing. He was a man who lived with his reality, which was pretty constricting, and more so as he got sicker, I should say. But he always faced being alive as the greatest gift, and a true gift, and the one that he chose to celebrate on a daily basis because he still was alive. He found, even if it was only a kernel, he found that little bit of joy. And I only hope that I will have that sort of grace as I get on closer to the end. So I did this thinking about sadness, and then I came upon, quite incidentally, accidentally, I guess, an article that was in the Washington Post from The Optimist by a writer named Maggie Penman. It was about a study that had been studied by researchers at Yale University. The health and retirement study followed subjects over a decade to look at many things about aging, but the thing that the Yale professors focused in on was how did one's attitude about aging relate to health, activities, sense of purpose, joy, whatever. Interestingly enough, well, there are many interesting things, but one is, we always say, and I've said it before, that as you age, you're going to have some cognitive impairment. Not true. Almost half of all the people in this study had, in fact, their cognitive and their physical functioning improved as they got older. And personally, I think it has to do with time. You have more time to walk the dog. You have more time to read a book. You have more time to explore and do the crossword puzzle and do the research sometimes that I have to do so that I can complete the crossword puzzle. I will not lie. I like doing research. And so I think there's lots of reasons why cognitive and physical functioning improves with age for many of us, close to half anyway. But we too, I being right at the top of the list, have always carried negative beliefs about aging. We've talked about this in an earlier video. And we really, that's the worst thing that happens to you when you're older. You meet these roadblocks, these societal blocks, these words, these pictures get emblazed in your brain that I'm old, I don't think straight. I'm old, I'm not going to remember like what I had for breakfast today. That could happen when I was working 12-hour days and going to meetings at night on top of that. But I never said, it's all about being middle-aged. No, I never said that. It's about the societal assumptions that are put upon us and the negative language, the negative conversations. It's important as older people that we fight that and that we deal with our own reality and don't listen to all that bad stuff because it's out there. But the majority of people will live a pretty healthy lives until they die. And they can live full lives until then. And they can be happy living their lives until then. And there's some things we can do to help ourselves sort of keep a protective screen between us and all the negativity, but also maybe help to foster some changes in our cultural dynamics around aging. They call it the ABCs. A, be aware of the negative language, the negative stereotypes, and that's all they are. They're being fed to all of us, whether you're young or old, and it's going to shape how you see your future. So you'd rather you were looking at a positive future than a negative one, then stop doing the negative talking and thinking about being old. Being old is a privilege, it's the gift. And the B is shift the blame from being old to ageism, because it's ageism that makes some of the experiences as you become older negative. Like me walking with a walker right now. I do that with the dog because I don't want to fall and hit my head again. I could walk him without a walker, but I'm making a smart choice to use a walker so that I will be safer. The walker gives me a chance to sit down and have the water bottle in the little bag on the walker. It's nothing but good for me. I don't see that as negative. I see that as smart. And I see that as someone who's happy to be alive and who wants to stay that way. I know I used to look at people with walkers in a negative way. I certainly don't do that anymore. And I will push back when people say, you shouldn't be doing walker anymore. You don't need it. Well, I choose to do it for reasons that I think are quite pertinent. And the C is when you do hear these negative stereotyping labels relative to aging, to the elderly, to challenge that and challenge it by your life as well. If you're lucky enough to be one of my age bracket people, I'm 78. If you're lucky to make it 65, 70, 75, 85, 90, how high do we want to go, Then I hope you can and are finding the purpose, the joy in every day and in being, simply being alive. And focus on that almost half group that will actually, you probably are one of them, have increased their cognitive and physical functioning. The uncluttered mind, I think, really does make a sense. And the time to use your brain for the things that matter to you now. Find a purpose, even if it's only walking your dear dog. Anyway, be bold. I'll add A, B, C, another B. Old, be bold. Yeah. See you soon. Bye.